Well, thank you, Camille, Katie, Kylie, all of my friends at CreativeMornings. It's great to be here this morning to share my story. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Blue Star and some projects and how I've achieved my flow. But I'm also going to give you a little more insight into me personally and how I've kind of flown through to where I am today. Blue Star Contemporary, I hope everybody comes and visits me after this if you haven't been there before. But as Camille mentioned, we're located in the Southtown neighborhood. We've been there since 1986. Our mission is to inspire, nurture, and innovate through contemporary art, and we consider ourselves an artist-centric organization. So it's always the creatives are at the heart of everything that we do. Educating, forward-thinking. We try to exceed expectations and surprise people with all of our work and be inclusive. So even more reason for you all to come down and see me. So Blue Star got its start in 1986, and I think that this story is really inspiring and something that has carried through in our work today. It was founded by this great group of artists who were the first in 1986 to be a part of the Blue Star exhibition. That's how Blue Star Contemporary got its name. Back in 1986, there was an exhibition scheduled with contemporary artists from San Antonio, these folks behind me, for the San Antonio Museum of Art. And that show was abruptly canceled. And as pioneers are innately, they wanted to see the show go forward. So they came to the people who owned Blue Star, it's still in the same family today, and said, hey, we really need a platform for our work in San Antonio. There's not a nonprofit space at that time for artists to present their work. Please, can we maybe do it here? And they're like, sure, you can have this space as long as you clean out the tires and the old mattresses and things like that were there in 1986. It's not... the King William neighborhood was not the Tony zip code it is today. The mission reach of the river was not what it is today. So these pioneering spirits did all of that work for this platform for contemporary art. And in the first few years, it was just an annual exhibition, which has grown now to be much more. We do a lot of we do exhibitions on site, education programs, but we also do a lot in the community. And one of the projects I'm going to speak to today is something that we've done in the community in the past. So a little bit more about me and how I got to be where I am. This is kind of my not necessarily a heat map, but like kind of of all of my professional experience and like how I think one thing that's great about contemporary art is that it's really heavily informed by what's around us and the concerns of today. Like all the artists that we work with are living. We have a lot of shared experiences because we walk in the world at the same time. And I am a student of art history. I studied art history at Trinity first, which is up there. Worked in the slide library there. Got really hands-on with the material. And I went to the University of Chicago, which is a really multidisciplinary approach to education, and not just art history by itself, but how it's interconnected with lots of different things. That is something, that sort of multidisciplinary approach and drawing sources of inspiration for my work from everything that I do in life, not just professionally, through working at arts organizations. You can see I was a coffee barista for a while. All of those experiences I think feed us in very useful ways as we move forward in life. This is my most important job. Yeah. So this is my 6-year-old son, and so this is parenthood and being somebody important in another person's life is also something that feeds my work. And we've done exhibitions about called Homebodies, about kind of the concerns of our home life and life versus work life at Blue Star. So what is my day-to-day like? I am an executive director of a very small nonprofit. So Blue Star has been around since 1986, but it's still very true to its scrappy roots. that's something that we love and honor in some ways, and other days would love to break away from. Full disclosure, this is not exactly my desk, but it's more like a metaphor for sometimes of how I think of my work. In that, we are at Blue Star, we're a small staff. And although we have, there's a job description that backs up what we're supposed to be doing, it's definitely not inclusive of everything that we do. Everybody leans very heavily on others, and I think that sort of multi-dexterous sort of malleability and ability to go with the flow of, kind of what's thrown at you, engaging the public in new ways. Fundraising is a giant portion of what I have to do on a regular basis. This is kind of gives you an idea of trying to be, and truly, and this is something that I share with all of my staff members, being, we are PR people, we're fundraisers, we're creatives, we're designing exhibitions, we're working directly with artists. We're also paying bills and doing things like signing insurance contracts. This is, of course, the work that I love to do. So this is me working with some of the artists that we've presented in exhibitions. On the right is Toasting in Berlin with Ethel Shipton, who her exhibition just closed at Blue Star. This is why I get up and go to work every day, because the ideas and the conversations and the innovation that happens inside of art and how we're able to present that on a larger stage is truly inspiring. It's definitely not this stuff, which is more of this is insurance documents. There's just a few things of the drudgery that I have to deal with on a daily basis too, because it's all real life. The right side is all the detail of where all the roof leaks were at our mosaic program, which is our after school program for high school students, and a big rainstorm, a few major headaches. But this is the stuff of real life. So, and it is really these headaches and these things that are maybe the hard stuff, the stuff that I don't like grappling with on a daily basis, but know they need to. That also growth happens, right? You kind of flow through these things, these challenges, and even though it might not be the inspiring, rewarding conversations I have with artists, it's also in this hard work. I'm going to share a little bit of a personal story. So this is not me, but this is how I felt when I went to Russia in late November, about 10 years ago. My brother was living in Moscow, and we decided to do, while we were visiting him, decided to do a trip to St. Petersburg. I don't know if you've ever been there in end of November, but I think it was a little bit colder even than it was supposed to be. It was negative 11 degrees outside. It was frigid. I've never been so cold in my life. One of the experiences that everybody told me that I needed to have while in Russia was to visit a Russian banya. Has anybody done that before? It was sold to me like a spa. That I was going to go and take part in this ritual that was going to be, just really relaxing, and everybody was going to, it was going to be this multi-hour process, and it was going to be, punctuated by shots of vodka. It was going to be amazing. So, mind you, it was this cold outside, and we pull up to this banya in St. Petersburg, which was an old institution, and I immediately saw a line of people. I was there with my spouse, and we were also told that it was going to be a unisex experience, or at least this is what had been told to me, and that even though you're going to have to separate in the beginning, you're going to be reunited. And I joined the line, which was mostly women who are much older than myself, and not really knowing what was going to happen. And I was quickly figured out that I had that I was out of my element. And I was asking them in line, I was asking someone in line, like, does anybody speak English? Like where I didn't show up with a towel or anything. I was told that I could rent a towel. I didn't have the hat or anything. And everybody is dressed like in their like 10,000 layers because it's like this outside. And they finally shepherd me through, and I am I'm encountering these people who are not at first are obviously they're a little put off by me because I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. And there's a woman who's just kind of pantomiming to me like, you have to go over here, get your locker, and you have to strip naked. And I was thinking, like, this is not exactly the spa, like, where's the robe? And the other women around me are obviously, they had come with like bags of supplies, washcloths, things like that, the hats. And they're watching me sort of awkwardly put my clothes in the locker. And this is the first time that I've ever been publicly naked with people who with about 75 women who I've never met. So it was a little bit like this, but without the clothes. I couldn't find any pictures.
Thank you.
Well, actually, just wait. And to say that it was this happy with it, like this many smiles, would be inaccurate. So when I got inside, and I'm just kind of following everybody, doing my best with a smile, because I found when I'm truly terrified or feel really like I need somebody's help to rely on, like doing it with a smile, like sometimes helps. At least I'm trying to. It was more like this. So there was this I was after standing around kind of dumbfounded and completely mortified. I mean, getting over the fact that I'm completely nude in front of most of the women. It was Pensioners' Day, which means Retirees' Day. Most of the women were over the age of 65. I was the only person there. I was separated by a number of decades. They took me under their wing and brought over shampoo. One was like washing my body with her washcloth. It was a really amazing, awful experience. But one that I reflect on often, because long story short, I was never reunited with my spouse as a result of it. There was no public pool or vodka shots. This was the Russian banya in St. Petersburg, where people go on a weekly basis really to get clean. So it was utilitarian in the middle of the winter. So you go through this process of sort of a dunk, a scrub, a beating with the birch branches, the sitting in the sauna, and you do it over and over again for 3 or 4 times in rotation. I mean, by the 4th time, with other people scrubbing me and helping me out, because they thought, poor girl, she has no idea what she's doing. This was, I made it through okay. But this was a moment where I felt completely humiliated, vulnerable, and just completely out of my element in ways that I had never ever experienced before. It gave me a funny story, a life experience that whenever I think this is going to be bad, it's like it can't be that bad. So I came to Blue Star in 2014, and Blue Star had a long program with the San Antonio Botanical Garden called Art in the Garden, which was essentially a collaborative sculpture exhibition where Blue Star would select artists to put into the garden space. And when I came into my role, I wanted to do things a little bit differently. I was excited by having this wonderful space to showcase art and work with artists, and I wanted to utilize the landscape more as a material for artists, because artists work in many different ways. And in the past, we were citing beautiful sculpture like this. On the left is Richard Hunt, a phenomenal sculptor, and George Tobolowsky, that were being put in like the verdant pastures of the San Antonio Botanical Garden. This was a long-standing collaboration. Whenever you were the new person coming into with a wacky idea, it's a challenge, right? And my partners were really, they were counting on me saying, here are the 10 sculptures that we're going to put on these concrete pads that you've long established. But that was not what I wanted to bring to this collaboration. Instead, we invited an artist named Kim Beck, who's based out of Pittsburgh. And Kim designed a project called One Way Trail, which was an experiential project for viewers, and that you could experience the garden through unlikely tour guides. So in addition to not necessarily presenting sculpture in a way that my partners were used to seeing, these were our sculptures, which are signs, throughout the garden, which were, a different type of media. It also positioned, it brought in community groups to act as kind of experts in the garden to explore it in new ways. And so essentially the project is made up of, it was called One Way Trail, and these scenic walks throughout the garden that are guided by different people. There was even a dog in the mix. We had one dog go through the garden, and Kim worked with, mic'd up the dog, and so wherever the dog was, stopped to sniff, and you would call into this with your cell phone, and you could take the same tour that the dog did of the garden. And this one, Scenic View with the Thespian Troupe from Sacy. We had kind of more static moments throughout the exhibition where groups would, in this case, there was a group from Sacy who did an improv theater performance in the space that were then recorded, and so you could call the number at the time and listen to their interpretation in the space. Of course, we thought it was a phenomenal project. But like all things, all things that are maybe ambitious in scope and new, we did run into a lot of challenges. For the first challenge, of course, was that we were working with an artist remotely, which is not kind of a more common experience for Blue Star, because we tend to work, we're very committed to our local community. And Kim, although she traveled back and forth a number of times in the development of this program, was based in Pittsburgh. And so the fabrication of the signs that we had to put everywhere, which were, there were, I think, around 1,000 in the end. So there were not only these larger signs, there was some smaller signs like this that were little phrases or moments that had been plucked from the conversations that she had with the participants, and these little arrows that kind of took the vernacular of leading you on a trail, but sometimes they were pointing up or prompting you to look at a tree or something like that. The fabrication of the signs was a major headache. The first fabricator that we enlisted in this project didn't deliver a satisfactory product. So we, about a week before we were set to install, we had to refabricate all 1,000 signs, which there's only, if you guys don't already have the name of this man in your Rolodex, Anson Seal is phenomenal. It was kind of, Vicky's here and she's nodding. Anson Seal is an artist in our community, and he is a photographer, he's a web designer. He has a CNC machine, And he also has lots of friends all over, and sort of an engineer's mind to help us. He saved us with the fabrication for this project, which was all of us painting behind the scenes, because these signs were also different colors. So not only did they have to be manufactured properly, but they were painted. They were painted individually, front and back, mounted and installed in the garden space. This project was, was probably one of the, as the project to pick to be like the one to break the, to go against the grain, break the mold, and to go outside. We were really committed to it, but it was backbreaking in so many ways. This was something that we continue to learn a lot about. I learned a lot as far as stepping outside of my comfort zone and being committed to a concept, an idea, and what it really takes in order to see it through. I love this piece this is Katie Pell, who recently had her work at Blue Star. Katie is an artist in our community, and she does this wonderful creative exercise daily. And so there's she has thousands and thousands of these, where she collages 2 images from materials that she sources from magazines. There are many mixed messages. This one is what this one says about. You can see in her kind of classic. Her classic, very humorous way of the toad being offered a worm, and then the toad with the clothespin on his nose. I felt like this slide was connected. This work was kind of connected to how how that past project, the Art in the Garden project, was a challenge for me, for Blue Star Contemporary, as far as not only technically speaking of how we were trying to do something that was maybe a little bit beyond what had been done before, especially trying to fabricate something, trying to really commission something from scratch, utilizing the material of the garden, but also in sort of what we were trying to do philosophically with that collaboration to engage more people. I'm not sure that the project, in retrospect, had the clarity that we wanted because of all of those moving parts. However, this piece, this is a installation shot from a project that we had on site at Blue Star called Northern Triangle, which was a way that we like to work. And when I was talking about using landscape as material, in this case, we were using an issue that was affecting, that was in the news all the time, that was affecting us all, which was the news of all the migrants that were crossing from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And we wanted to do, this is one of the wonderful things about a place like Blue Star and the work that I do, is that we are not a collecting institution. We can be really responsive and dynamic and flexible. And when there are issues that we want to present, that we want to investigate more deeply, we can. We have the flexibility to do that, and how we like to do that is always to call artists into the conversation and get them thinking about this. Northern Triangle was an exhibition that we're particularly proud of because it engaged, again, so many different participants and brought so many community members together. The lead artists were Mark Menjivar, who I believe has spoken to this group in the past, and Jason Reed, and together they have a collective called Borderland Collective, which looks at issues of borders around the world. So more closely with the U.S.-Mexico border, and the way that their exhibitions manifest themselves is that they're really part archives, part part more traditional exhibition where there's artwork being presented for the first time or presented in conversation with other artwork, and part learning space. So included in this space are not only artists. You can see like the agua barrel, which is actually a real object that's used in the Falfurrias area to provide gallons of water to people who are crossing, and that's the I'm going to say it's a nonprofit organization down in the border region who does that, and so we engage them in this exhibition to provide that material and that learning for our audiences. This exhibition was also the platform for conversations. We did a number of chalk talks with community members. Chalk talks are conversations that take place in sort of in a graphic way, and that people respond with words on a chalkboard. In our case, it was like on a table with markers. And we also got to invite a lot of our other nonprofit community members. We had Graciela Sanchez from the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center. We had Maria De Leon from NALAC, and all these other participants come in and gather around the space of urgency in politics and in our region specifically, but also share their resources with people who might have been in this position of being a migrant who has come to our community through from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. So this was a particularly successful socially engaged project, which is of the type that we really like to do at Blue Star, because of the way that it kind of connects all aspects of our of what we're inspired by, what's happening around us, together in meaningful ways that allow for entry points for people of all varying backgrounds and interests, and exhibitions to come together. So this, I think, is in reflecting back on flowing. This was an instance where I also hit our stride as far as and what can I attribute to that? And I think it's always a mixture of boldness, of taking something big on that is that helps you grow and expand in personally, professionally, and also through connections with the other people that you engage. It's a mixture of bringing in ideas that are expressed by different participants, of people who have something new to share, have a hands-on personal experience with the issue, and providing a space for people to also add themselves into the conversation in larger ways, which was the same for our project in the garden. Without its taking aside its its kind of logistical challenges and things like that, and the fact that we're not typically involved in the painting and the fabricating end of things. At this moment, I think I'd like to open up for questions. Is that cool? Does anybody have any questions of anything I covered or anything else? I mean, I shared with you my naked story. Yes. So this was I think in retrospect they enjoyed it. I mean, they were. This was not they. they were not used to this type of working, this way of working, and it was really hard in the kind of the promotion of the concept, because we didn't really have anything tangible to show them. The work was commissioned for the space, so there wasn't we showed representative work of the artist from projects past, but we weren't able to say it's going to look like this, or we tried to engage them in the participants who were part of the tour leaders. We had some, in addition, I know I mentioned Stacey and the dog, which was our Blue Star dog at the time, not Duncan. I know that people here know Duncan, who's our current Blue Star dog, but Gizmo of years past, rest in peace. But we also had Edith McAllister, who also just sadly recently passed, but she's a very prominent figure in San Antonio, and Richard Bennett. So some of those, bringing in some of those other collaborators and giving them an option to help us identify who those people were was effective. And I think, it did pave the way for them to see the garden, the potential for the garden in new ways, and how typically the project in the past, the Art in the Garden was designated really only to one area, like the conservatory and the sort of the not the East Texas Trail and some of those other places that people in this project helped people experience in total, which was, I think, a really valuable takeaway from our collaboration in subsequent years. So this was the first year of our collaboration when I was ED, when I first became ED, and then we collaborated 2 more times after that, and it did pave the way for installations to be in other spots, kind of hidden, or and also to utilize the flora there as an active participant and as material in the presentation. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you for the applause.
Awesome.
So you haven't done anything on the public bathing deal?
No, I mean, it's funny, right, exactly. I mean, it's funny because, so now we just recently had a trip to Berlin for our donors. So Blue Star has a Berlin residency program. So any of you artists out there who want to go to Berlin for 3 months, I mean, as part of our residency program, look for the application in January. So we led a donor trip to Berlin to highlight that program. And the group that went did go to a Vivali spa in Berlin, because Germans also have this, have a culture of public bathing, and they got to step outside of their clothes and their element to be a part of the Vivali experience too.
You got some information.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Any other questions?
Yes.
What's next?
What's next for Blue Star? Well, Blue Star. We recently just opened exhibitions on the 4th of October. So we have 4 phenomenal shows happening in the exhibition space, and one of those shows, Teardowns, which features the work of Joey Farso, also has performances that are periodic throughout the course of the exhibition. So, and that kind of dynamic material is what's next for us, and sort of the development of that project, which will continue to grow and grow, because the documentation of those performances are then layered into the exhibition, and the exhibition changes over time, which is really exciting and cool. And then for me personally, I'm going to South Korea on Sunday, which I've never been to, but I'm going as a part of the city of San Antonio has a cultural delegation, which is going to visit the sister city in Gwangju, where Kaki Brawley, an artist in our community, has designed a public art piece, which will be installed outside of their convention center as a gift to our sister city. We got has anybody been to the Denman Estate? Does anybody know what that is? Yeah? You've seen the structure there that came from South Korea. The Gwangju gave that to the city of San Antonio, and we're giving Kaki's sculpture back. And so I was very honored. That's occasionally I get invited to do cool stuff like that. So I'm going with Kathy Armstrong from Luminaria, which is coming up November 9th. The fall is so chock full of wonderful things happening in San Antonio, but I'm gonna take it all in, and it's a city of media arts, which I'm really excited. They have a design biennial and art biennial, but typically with my, as I might have seen from my, our space, while lovely, is still like a $1 million budget, not really something that can support bringing like a lot of artwork from Korea, because that would just be not feasible, logistically speaking, financially speaking. But media art, and the way that we can kind of transfer media more easily, thanks to clouds and tech, I'm encouraged that maybe this will be something that we can present in the some of the work from Gwangju we can present in the space at Blue Star, because we've done that with some of our other sister city relationships too. Vicki.
What other art museums and galleries in the world can you look to as sort of a model that you want?
Wow. Well, when we have like, I guess there's like kind of many different ones for different reasons. Like there's some that are like more similar in size or scope or their service to the community, like the Atlanta Contemporary is one that's like that. It has a very similar story and how it came about, founded by artists in the community, and it's a nonprofit about the same size. So that's one that we like look to for sort of something that's like similar with resources and history. We also, we look a lot to our Texas peers too, because we have like a strong Texas commitment to artists in our region, which is San Antonio first and Texas second. We have a Texas open call every year for artists. So if anybody also wants to showcase their work, we take a yearly road trip around Texas. Jack McGilvray, our curator and exhibitions manager, and myself to visit artist studios, because those personal connections with artists and getting to work with them one-on-one is what we like, is the best type of relationship. So, we look to the Contemporary Art Museum in Houston, and some our Texas peers. And then I've always really admired what the Walker Art Center does too in Minneapolis, and so that has been sort of an organization that when I was in Chicago at the Museum of Contemporary Art was always one that we look to as a model too. But they do a wide range of programs, and they're also very heavily supported in their community in exciting ways, which is one of the ways that we would like to see San Antonio grow. And then Mass MoCA, which is which is in Massachusetts, and that story is also, while they're at a much grander scale, I think they have like maybe a few tens of thousands of square feet more than I have to work with at Blue Star. They, that space is an old factory space, and like really the city that there's a community that's grown up around art, which is the same thing to say that has happened in the Blue Star area, because it was really, like I said, in 1986, like it wasn't what it was today. There was definitely not the economic development, like and that is kind of what has happened there too, in a bold experiment way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Give that